Hello and welcome to the This Works For Me Virtual Summit. I'm your host, Permpate Watson. I am the Director of the Faculty Development Center at Morris State University. In this summit, I'll be speaking to Dr. Tonya Amankwatia. And if you are using badges or if you are preparing to use badges in the future in meaningful and creative way for your students, she will give you some practical strategies to do so. Dr. Amankwatia, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today.
And thank you very much for having me. I am Tanya Amankwatia, and I'm originally from Florida, but I think you probably noticed that the last name does not sound like it's from Florida. It's actually an Ashanti name from Kumasi, Ghana. So I am glad to be here to share with you. I have been involved in distance education, online technologies integration, educational technology, and faculty development since the mid-1990s. And I am so very glad to be here. I am actually now at Regent University, and I came here to direct the Center for Teaching and Learning here, and right now have a big passion for alternative pathways for students to demonstrate learning, and I am glad to share something that helps us to educate traditional and non-traditional students.
Yes, and I know that badges is a very important way of acknowledging our learners, how they are really progressing in our course. And I know that you're going to be telling us a bit about how you have been doing that. I'm really excited about this interview. Now, the title of your strategy is Using Badges to Build Research Teams. Now, tell us what impressed you to start using this strategy and how has it worked for you?
I'd be glad to. Actually, it was in the mid-2000s where I was looking to walk the talk as an instructional technologist and instructional designer, because we typically tell faculty to look for ways to innovate their curriculum. And for me, badges represented that innovation that I wanted for my technology program evaluation course. So the impetus really was for innovation. And so what that meant for me was to, find a way to integrate the badges in a way that would be helpful to the students, that would integrate with our Moodle instance at that point, and that would fit my teaching and learning philosophy. So right away, I started looking for the formative assessment implementation of badges rather than the, yay, I made this level and that's fine, use of badges. So the initial challenge I had was trying to find open badges that were already designed that actually represented the various parts of the research process. Mm-hmm. And that led me to now having to take the time to design badges that would make sense, be recognizable to the students, and to fit the various discrete skills that we needed. Mm-hmm. So after overcoming that challenge, it was just a matter of clearly introducing the innovation to the students and implementing it into the curriculum. And so I ended up finding a larger purpose for the badges, hence the title of the talk. And that was to have them inform my recommendations to colleagues for research teams. And as I thought about preparing for this talk, I thought, isn't this perfect with what we would want to do, authentic? Have some type of micro-credential to verify a skill for employment, or in this case, to be a part of a research team. And so it made my recommendations to this colleague very specific, because I could go right back to the badges and not just the faint recollection of a class of students. And I've taught 3 sections of this course. And I could go right back and identify the badge and make the recommendation based on demonstrative skills and accomplishments in the course.
Wow, I really think that's a creative way of doing it, not just on your part, but in terms of the students. How did the students embrace the use of badges in the course?
They were actually a little familiar with them because it was a College of Education program, but they weren't quite sure how they were going to be implemented in this class. And like I said, I actually use them as a form of formative assessment. So a concept was introduced, whether it was, a lit review, a theoretical foundation for an evaluation study. And then they had different opportunities to practice and to demonstrate whatever the acquisition of the badge was. So when they were clear about what the expectation was, it got to be quite interesting, because they were, on my case sometimes like, okay, where's the badge? And then I thought about that, isn't this a great way of student engagement?
Yeah.
They're following up on their learning in the process. So it wasn't like the grade on the paper, like, where's my grade, where's my A? But they were actually asking questions along the way about the process of becoming a good technology program evaluator. So I would say they were engaged. There were many times that they reached out to me, and I was, keeping up, how it is with faculty trying to get everything graded.
Wow. And you also mentioned that you were able to use this even to recommend students for future opportunities. What was the response of the people that you were recommending the students to? Your colleagues, for example.
Yeah, in this case, it was a colleague who reached out to me after the course was over, and knowing what the topic of the course was, he thought that, from the times that I've taught, that I might have some good recommendations. So again, this is something that I would say was positively received. And that was verbal feedback, because I didn't just give him a list of names, but I was able to attach the very specific description of the badge and the skill. So it saved me a lot of time, because everything was laid out very clearly. So I knew what each badge meant, and it helped me match the right student to the right opportunity. And so the research team was formed.
Wow. And I think what's unique about this is that you didn't really start the badges because you knew that you were going to ask for these students, but it really came in handy. And so I think that too could be an encouragement to our listeners, that even if you do not literally see the immediate need in which you are going to be using these badges, you could still do it, first of all, to make the experience meaningful for your students, but also help them to see the connection with real life opportunities.
And I think that's very important, because the connection to real life opportunities extends in a couple of ways. Before this, the grade would have just been between the instructor and the student. So now they have something demonstrative, and there's the encouragement to add to a social media profile like LinkedIn. There is now the opportunity to encourage them to translate the badges to a resume or CV. So I like that it is a visual representation, and it gets outside of just the class. And in Moodle, the instance of Moodle that we were using at this particular university, there's a place to demonstrate and to show badges there and in their e-portfolio. So it ended up, to me, opening up the course in ways that we hadn't before.
Right. And for those of you who use other learning management systems, there are opportunities to use badges in the learning management systems as well. It's
Absolutely.
just a matter of, it's just a matter of finding out how to do so. And later on, we'll talk about resources that could help our viewers in that regard. So what would you say to our viewers that are interested in using badges, but they're a bit hesitant to do so?
Well, I do know that some colleagues have been a little hesitant about badges, and most of it has been because of a view of student motivation, that they focus on just the intrinsic motivation value. So in other words, there are people who have the philosophy that you shouldn't have to, dangle a shiny coin on some level to get a student to persist and engage. So I would say to people who might have that philosophy to perhaps think of creative ways that you might utilize badges for formative assessment, especially in online environments. It really is a good way and an effective way to give students feedback right away. And like I said, in a persistent visual way, because it sits right there in the environment. So think about the badges as transforming a very well-written rubric, if you will. If you think about a grading rubric, if you use those, they usually stay between the student and the faculty. How many people put up, on their social media or post in the learning management system, their rubric. So I would just encourage probably just a concept change of how these might be applicable to some of the current challenges that we have: student persistence, student engagement, and then authentic learning opportunities, like what this ended up being with the getting a job, if you will, with a badge, with something that was verifiable.
I really like what you're sharing, because as a student, I remember when I was preparing to look for jobs, I had to literally do that for myself. I had to think about the classes that I've completed and really frame my resume in a way that would help me to sell my skills. Now, if I had you as an instructor, you would have made a little part of my job much easier for me. So I think this is a good strategy that you're using that is really meaningful for students. So now let's talk a little bit about resources. Are there any resources that you would recommend for our viewers to look at?
Sure. Well, the first place that I went to was Mozilla's Open Badge website. And even now you'll see some very, very good resources there. Mozilla actually has this really neat map that shows you where badges are used all over. And then there is a 2017 initiative that is called the IMS Global Learning Consortium, that has also taken up and extended the initial work of badges. One resource that I think everyone would very much like and find useful is actually one from Springer. I'm a member of AECT, so have lots of access to the Springer publications. And this book, and it's entitled Foundations of Digital Badges and Micro-Credentials. And it's an edited book with lots of great chapters. And just to give you an overview of what that book has to offer as you think about incorporating some type of strategy with badges. It has a whole area that talks about the theoretical framework. So that gets back to our other question of, for people who might have some, philosophical or maybe theoretical issues with badges. So it covers that. Then it has something that talks about the technological frameworks, and that gets back to what you were saying before. I mentioned Moodle because that's what I used at that school, but I've used 3 other LMSs since then. So it does deal with the technological frameworks. And then it also has a great area and several chapters that deal with the learning and instructional design framework. So I would highly recommend that foundations book if you're new to it, and then the website.
Wow, I think these are great resources. I'm going to check them out myself. And we're going to be sharing the link to those resources in the summit resources, as well as the description box to this video below. So in the closing minutes or so of this conversation, could you leave our viewers with an encouragement or challenge?
I would be happy to. Interest in micro-credentials is still growing. And so even though this was an early experiment, there is so much room for growth. And I just look forward to what you might do and come up with to empower learners with, owning that formative assessment process and being able to speak powerfully about the skills that they have acquired in your course. And I know that you'll think of something very authentic that would further this initial strategy of mine for forming research teams. So look around at your university and see what authentic applications you might have. And I know that your students and colleagues will appreciate it.
Wow, well said. I am challenged, so going to take you up on that. And to our viewers, I hope you are challenged and encouraged too to see this as a meaningful strategy to use for your students and your learners. And I hope that you continue this conversation. If there are ways in which you are using badges or have used badge or plan to use badge, share it in the comments below. We would like to hear what you're doing. And if you have any other questions, definitely continue this conversation. So Dr. Amankwatia, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today. You have indeed left us with some practical strategies to use.
Thank you very much for having me, and have a great rest of your semester or day.
Thank you so much. And to our viewers, I would encourage you to share this conversation with others, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of this virtual summit. See you soon.
Bye-bye.